In 2003, the most beloved toy company on Earth was quietly bleeding to death. Not a startup, not some risky new brand. Lego, a company that had survived a world war, 2 factory fires, and 70 years of business. And here's the strange part. It wasn't dying because kids stopped buying toys. It was dying because of a plan its own leaders were proud of. By some accounts, Lego was losing close to $1 million every single day. Inside the company, some believed they had maybe a year left. So how does the most trusted toy brand in history end up 48 hours of cash away from disaster? And how did a 35-year-old former consultant walk in, break almost every rule Lego believed in, and turn it into the biggest toy company on the planet? The answer starts with a carpenter in Denmark in 1932. Ole Kurt Christiansen was a carpenter in a tiny Danish town called Billund, and in 1932, in the middle of the Great Depression, his carpentry business was collapsing. Nobody was building houses, nobody had money, so Ole did something desperate. He started making wooden toys, ducks, cars, little pull-along animals. 2 years later, he gave the company a name, Lego, from the Danish words leg god, what means play well. Now, here's what tells you everything about this man. One day, his son proudly told him he'd saved money by giving the wooden ducks only 2 coats of varnish instead of 3. Ole made him go back, unpack every box, and repaint every single duck. His motto became the company's soul. Only the best is good enough. In 1949, Lego started experimenting with something new. Plastic interlocking bricks. Most toy stores hated them. Plastic was seen as cheap junk. But Ole's son Gottfried kept refining the design, and in 1958, Lego patented the exact brick design we still use today. Think about that. A brick made in 1958 still clicks perfectly into a set sold this morning. That obsession with quality built an empire. By the 1980s and early 90s, Lego was one of the most profitable and most loved toy companies in the world. Growth looked unstoppable. And that is exactly when everything started to go wrong. In the 1990s, Lego's leaders looked at the future and saw a terrifying enemy, the video game. Kids were falling in love with PlayStations and computers, and inside Lego headquarters, a panic set in. The thinking went like this: the brick is old, the brick is boring. If we stay a brick company, we die. So Lego decided to stop being a brick company and become an everything company. Theme parks, clothing lines, watches, video games, television shows, its own action figure line called Galador, which, if you've never heard of it exactly. Between the mid-90s and 2003, Lego exploded in every direction at once. The number of different brick shapes and pieces roughly doubled, from around 6,000 to nearly 13,000. And here's the detail that should have set off every alarm. Many of those new custom pieces were used in only one single set. Each one needed its own expensive steel mold. Some molds cost tens of thousands of dollars. To make a piece that barely sold, nobody was doing the math. Seriously, at one point, Lego reportedly couldn't even tell which of its products made money and which lost it. For a while, the chaos was hidden. Star Wars sets in 1999 and Harry Potter sets in 2001 sold like crazy. But that success was borrowed. It belonged to the movies. And in years when there was no new Star Wars film, sales fell off a cliff. In 1998, Lego posted the first loss in its history. The response? Spend more, expand more, launch more. By 2003, the bill arrived. 2003 was the year the floor gave out. Sales collapsed by roughly 30% in a single year. The company posted a loss of around $220 million. The next year was nearly as bad. The Christensen family, like still the owners, was pumping in its own money to keep the lights on. Let that sink in. Lego. The company voted Toy of the Century, was surviving on the founding family's personal wealth. Analysts openly discussed the obvious ending. Lego would be sold, probably to Mattel. The maker of Barbie would own the brick. Inside Billund, the mood was grief. Employees describe it as watching a family member in intensive care, and then, in October 2004, the family made a decision that shocked everyone. They handed the company, a 72-year-old family dynasty, to an outsider. a 35-year-old former McKinsey consultant who had been at LEGO for only 3 years. His name was Jürgen Vig Knudstorp, and almost nobody believed he could pull this off. Knudstorp's first move wasn't a genius growth plan. It was brutal honesty. He stood in front of the owners and said, essentially, "We are not a healthy company with a few problems. We are a dying company. We may not survive." Then he did the opposite of everything LEGO had done for a decade. Instead of chasing every shiny new idea, he asked one deceptively simple question: why does LEGO exist? The answer wasn't theme parks. It wasn't TV shows. It wasn't action figures. It was the brick. So he cut. Ruthlessly. The Legoland theme parks, sold. The clothing lines, the side projects, gone. Around 1,000 jobs, cut. Painful, but survival came first. Then the nerdiest, most boring, most important fix of all: the pieces. Remember those 13,000 unique bricks? His team cut the catalog roughly in half. Designers now had to justify every new piece. If an existing brick could do the job, you used the existing brick. Cash stopped burning. Costs collapsed. And something unexpected happened. Creativity went up. Constraints forced designers to be clever instead of expensive. But Knudstorp's smartest move might have been who he chose to listen to. The fans. Adult LEGO fans, the ones building entire cities in their basements, had been ignored for years. LEGO started inviting them in, letting them test sets, suggest ideas, even design products. That community became a free army of designers and the brand's loudest marketers. And instead of running away from video games, LEGO ran toward them, this time on its own terms, with LEGO video games that pulled kids back to the brick instead of replacing it. By 2005, LEGO was profitable again. And it didn't just recover, it caught fire. In the next decade, LEGO did something almost no collapsing company ever does. It became the #1 toy company in the world, bigger than Mattel, bigger than Hasbro. The LEGO Movie in 2014 turned the brand into a global cultural moment. Adult fans became one of its biggest markets, and that boring little brick from 1958, still the core of everything. So what actually saved LEGO? Not a revolutionary product, not a lucky break. It was the discipline to answer one question honestly: what are we actually for? LEGO almost died because it was embarrassed by its own brick. It survived because someone finally realized the brick was never the problem. The lesson hiding in this story applies to way more than toys. When everything is falling apart, the answer usually isn't to become something new. It's to remember what made you matter in the first place. If you enjoyed this one, this channel is all about stories like it. Companies, currencies, and empires that rose, fell, and sometimes clawed their way back. The next story is even crazier than this one. See you there.